All right, Ben, scissors down. Let's go.
Hold on. I'm cutting my hair.
Our host is old school, guys. He takes clips and cuts them up.
Yes, sir. He actually reads newspapers. Oh, my God.
All right, guys, your Ben Joravsky show's just moments away. Live stream chat. What is happening? Man, it is on and popping in there today. Frank wants us to play a song of the day, but his song of the day is for his favorite college football team, the Alabama Crimson Tide. How do you feel about that, Ben?
Oh, Deacon Blue?
Deacon Blue.
Is that what he wants?
No, his song is Sweet Home Alabama, but...
I hate that song, but I'll do it for Frank because I love Frank.
All right. Well, let's get the sponsorship out of the way here. Your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, November 20th is moments away. But before we do this, let's thank these unions, or one union really, the Chicago Federation of Labor. Thank you, Chicago Federation of Labor. And today's Ben Joravsky show is brought to you by the Chicago Reader, for all there is to know in the city of Chicago. Check out chicagoreader.com, subscribe to the Chicago Reader, and if you want to support this show, definitely subscribe to the Chicago Reader. All right. Sweet Home Alabama. Let's hear it, Ben.
All right, before I do that, let me just say this, Frank, you're not alone. My dear friend, love him dearly, Mick Dumke, loves this song. We've had many debates about this song. I'm much more the Neil Young fan for Southern Man, and Mick's like, can't we just like them both? Mick's like the Joe Biden when it comes to, can't we just all get along, huh? So here we go. So I'll do my own little version of it. Sweet home, not Alabama. Sweet home, not Alabama. Like that, D?
I got to say, hands down, the worst song of the day we've ever done.
How about Southern Man with a sizzling guitar solo?
I mean, not even an effort to sing. Sweet home, not Alabama.
Well, you try doing Sweet Home and then put the not in there. It's not that easy, especially when you can't sing to begin with. Do you ever think of that? No. Hold on, I had a drink of water.
Oh, there you go.
Delicious.
The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Friday, November 20th, and live from my apartment in his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor, Rummana Hussain. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Weirdsville Friday, and here's why. I know we're supposed to be a super serious news affair podcast, right, Dave?
Oh, says who?
And I know these are definitely super serious times, what with Donald Trump bringing in state legislators from Michigan to seat their own electors, thus undoing the will of the people. A state, Michigan, that Joe Biden won by over 150,000 votes. A coup, you might call it. So, yes, we should take these things very serious. On the other hand, every now and then, something occurs in the midst of these serious times that is so batshit crazy that, I don't know, you just pause and you say to yourself, did I see that? Did that really happen? Is this America? Or have we all gone to Weirdsville? I'm talking, of course, about Rudy Giuliani's performance yesterday at his 90-minute press conference, which was certifiably insane. It's not just the rambling, unfocused, make it up as you go along conspiracy theories about a fraud that never happened, though that's probably the biggest part about it. No, it's not even when he starts babbling about Hugo Chavez. Like, what in the world are you doing and why are you doing it? I mean, folks, I remember in the 2018 Democratic primary for governor, we had a candidate named Robert Marshall. Remember him, D? He came into the show. Oh. Robert Marshall.
Yes, I remember Robert Marshall quite well.
He was the dude who had a plan to divide the state of Illinois into 3 regions and said if you elect him governor, that's what he would do. And he came to the studio with the map in his hand, the proposed map, remember?
Yeah.
And I'm like, as I'm saying to him, I'm like taking him seriously. He's like questioning, like, well, why do you divide it here? He goes, it's just a piece of paper. I mean, I don't have to be wedded to this thing. We can change it, Oh, my God.
That guy was awesome. All right, now listen, what you do is you take the state and you divide it into 3, all right? 3. Wait, where's everybody going? This is a good plan.
Yeah, well, watching Rudy.
And he came to the station, Robert Marshall. Good times.
Yeah, I came to the station. He faced the cannons.
Dennis, the vending machine ate my dollar. Help me.
But he had the map. That's what I remember. He brought the map to the studio and was waving it in the air as we sat there. So I was thinking of Robert Marshall when I was watching Rudy Giuliani's performance yesterday. But there's an important distinction between Marshall and Rudy Giuliani. Robert Marshall, even when he was waving the map in the air, wasn't as batshit crazy as Rudy Giuliani. I mean, Rudy's performance, I can't even get the words out. Obviously, there's the most obvious bizarre thing was the leaking ears. He put some gunk on his hair. He's sweating like a horse. And then the dye starts to drip down his face. Looks like some comic villain from Batman. People all over America, I know it. They're like watching this and going, what's that stuff running down Rudy Giuliani's face? Say what you will about Robert Marshall. He never had black hair paint running down his face. Was it dye? Was it mascara? Was it spray?
Is that hair gel?
Was it spray paint? New York Times assigned a reporter to find out the answers. How about that, D? The New York Times just sent some reporter out. He called salons all over New York City. Well, Ben Joravsky's show didn't have to call salons all over Chicago. I didn't make Dennis get on the phone and go, "Hi, I'm Dennis from the Benny J show, a.k.a. Dr. D, not a doctor."
I'll never say that, and I'll never do that.
We want to know, is that Ty? No. I didn't ask Dennis to do that. Because we have our own in-house hair expert, my wife, with over 40 years in the hair business. So I asked my wife, what was that stuff dripping down Rudy's sweaty face? And here's what she said, and I quote, "It's spray-on color or rinse you use when you shampoo to cover gray. It would be temporary coloring, not something you get in a salon. So don't blame a salon. It's something to cover gray or a rinse you put in your hair after shampoo. He probably sprayed it on himself, like out of a hairspray paint. How about that? We have experts too. Take that, New York Times." But as weird as the leaking ears were, that was not the weirdest part of Rudy's performance. I would say the rudest, most disgusting part came when he blew his nose and then wiped his handkerchief in his hands, then wiped his handkerchief over his face, then put his handkerchief back into his pocket, and then was like shaking hands with people, with the whole world watching. I gotta tell you this, Robert Marshall, with his map, most definitely never did that. There's a guy who put up a TikTok bit doing a play-by-play of Rudy blowing his nose. We'll probably play it a little while later with Rummana, do the breakdown. Folks, look, I know the coup is outrageous, calling in legislators from Michigan to try to convince them to undo the will of the people is treasonous. Calling the certifiers from Wayne County to pressure them into uncertifying the votes from Detroit, and only Detroit, is the stuff of banana Republicans. Plus, it's racist as all hell. And anytime you want to take a break from denouncing Michael Joseph Madigan Republicans, feel free to weigh in. Come on, Tribune editorial board, come out from under that table. But as outrageous as all this is, it's hard to take it as serious as it deserves, as serious as it must be taken, when the people implementing this coup are such buffoons. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain will be here. Our favorite Sun-Times editor columnist.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Let's go.
Rummana Hussain, who was a guest on the Mark Sims show. So my world's coming together. Mark, you did an outstanding job, as you always do. Mark said something, D, that I'm going to be stealing. Hold on.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm going to be stealing this for a long time, Mark. Just telling you, it was a really good closing line. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Hold on, D. He closed his interview with Rummana by saying, close us out with a little wisdom. I thought that was a great line. Close us out with a little wisdom.
I mean, I can't think of a better way to help out our fellow podcasting neighbors than rip them off and steal their saying. So go for it. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'll help them out.
Well, I'll give them credit sometimes.
Okay. All right.
As Mark Sims likes to say, close us out with a little wisdom. Every now and then I'll just go, close us out with a little wisdom. I won't give Mark Sims any credit. And the guests will go, what a brilliant closing line, Ben. Where did you come up with that? And I go, just occurred to me. Anyway, Rummana Hussain will be here. A lot of political talk or recommendations. But before we do that, the young man from Alton, the man they call Dr. D, with the news.
Hey, guys, what's going on? Nobody calls me that. I'm Dennis. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois for the fourth and final time this week, we need to try and convince all of you listening at the moment to check out this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning while we're away. A brand new interview for you to play at the Chicago Reader website and wherever else you download podcasts. Let's go through this weekend's lineup. On Saturday, sports. Yeah! Our Ben Joravsky Loves the Bulls series continues with our 2020 NBA Draft Special with Miles the Editor Porter and Benji the Bookie.
Yeah, Benji the Bookie comes in. I know all my listeners out there aren't sports fans. I realize that. I appreciate it. And I thank you for allowing me to indulge my love for the Bulls from time to time. But this is a lot of fun. And actually, Dennis participated as well.
Yeah, it was, fun.
I know. Yeah, Dennis, Mr. Don't talk about sports. But you guys don't know, he's a huge basketball fan. Spends a lot of time watching it on YouTube.
Yeah, I kind of got painted as the grumpy guy in this. So we'll go check it out. It's good. It's good times.
Yeah, the grumpy guy. Harumph. He was playing his inner Harumph card. It was a lot of fun. And Benji the Bookie got that name. He's earned that name. The man's been known to wager a bet or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9.
Well, he's not going to be betting on the podcast you're going to hear. We're going to be talking all things the NBA draft. How did the Bulls do? How is the NBA season looking? Who should the Bulls get in a trade? Things like that. It's our sports edition of the Ben Joravsky Show. Ben Joravsky Loves the Bulls. The NBA Draft Special on Saturday. On Sunday, the return of a dear friend. It's been a long time since we had him on the program, and I'm so glad we got him back. Out Chicago's own Scott Duff. Ben, what are you going to talk about with Scott Duff?
Well, the thing about Scott Duff, he's a man for all seasons. So you could talk politics with him. You could talk movies with him. You could talk comedy with him, recipes with him, Thanksgiving coming up. We may talk some about, what is he going to make for Thanksgiving? The guy does his own, has his own cooking show. But, with Scotty, you never know where the conversation's going to go, D. So I have no idea. You know what I'm saying?
He's a wild man.
He's the wild man. He's a stand-up comedian. Very much, it's an improv. So you got like 10 things you want to discuss, want to cover, and maybe you'll talk about one thing, and then 9 things that you didn't realize you were going to talk about. So it's always a blast. He's truly a funny man and a wise man in his own way.
A very wise man, a very funny man. Yeah, Cooking Stuff with Scott Duff, I believe it's called. Go find that on YouTube. Watch some videos maybe before you check out the interview. Scott Duff, good guy. Ben, hold your ears, please. I got something I need to say. I don't think you want to hear it.
Okay.
All right, great. Scott Duff is the host of Out Chicago on WCPT 820, the station that fired Ben. So, it's a great show, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on WCPT 820. All right, Ben, unplug your ears. You're good.
Can I unplug my ears? My ears are plugged, so I can't hear you.
Yeah, unplug your ears. Unplug your ears.
Okay, I'm reading your lips. Could you say it a little slower? It's hard to read the lips. Oh, unplug my ears.
Yeah.
By the way, Scott Duff is the host of a radio show on Damn, I forgot the name of that station.
Oh, it's WCPT 820. They fired you. Okay.
Oh, yeah. See you later.
That's on Sunday at 5 a.m. All right. Chicago Reader website and wherever else you download podcast. And finally, on Monday, our good friend Karen Hawkins of the Chicago Reader. A lot to talk about with Karen. Isn't that right, Ben?
Politics, newspapers, the future of podcasting, talk about the podcasting network that the Reader's putting together. And Karen Hawkins, great person, dear friend of mine. So yes, political talk, media talk, podcasting talk. Looking forward to it.
Guys, we're always throwing something up on the download. Go check it out if you haven't yet. The Ben Joravsky Show on the Chicago Reader website, wherever else you download podcasts. This weekend's lineup. Saturday, all things sports with Benji the Bookie and Miles the Editor. Sunday, Scott Duff, host of Out Chicago. And Monday, Karen Hawkins of the Chicago Reader. It's this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews, available at 5 a.m. this weekend. Okay, let's do the local news. Everybody is talking about it today. Madigan Gate, the time when utility giants ComEd admitted to arranging jobs, contracts, and payoffs to associates of one Michael Joseph Madigan. We have more updates. And yes, we're doing the bus bid again. More Democrats have jumped on board, and they're ready to throw the speaker under it. But first, we begin in Chicago. Today, the local news went national. Activists who protested in Chicago over George Floyd's death filed a lawsuit Thursday accusing city police officers of brutally attacking and falsely arresting them during the demonstrations. In a 205-page lawsuit filed in federal court, more than 4 dozen people say officers responded to lawful demonstrations with, quote, brutal, violent, and unconstitutional tactics that are clearly intended to injure, silence, and intimidate plaintiffs and other protesters. According to the lawsuit, police beat the protesters with batons, often striking them in the head, tackled and beat protesters while on the ground, used chemical agents against protesters, and trapped protesters in enclosed areas. The lawsuit officers also destroyed or confiscated protesters' belongings, including glasses, cameras, and backpacks. It lists the city, police superintendent David Brown, and several named and dozens of unnamed officers as defendants.
Yeah, this is serious stuff, as opposed to Rudy Giuliani's hair leaking. And I'll start by saying this. I've been promoting the hell out of City So Real, Steve James' documentary. It's an outstanding documentary about the mayoral election of 2019 here in Chicago, really about Chicago. The epilogue to it, which I think is must watch, has to do with the events over the summer, including protests, including police whacking protesters over the head with batons, and including some demonstrators agitating police, throwing things at police. It's all there. And one thing that becomes clear from watching the documentary and thinking about what went down this summer and remembering the interviews I've done with various people who were witnesses to the protests. I myself was hiding out for most of the summer because of the pandemic in my attic. But one of the things that becomes clear, Dee, is that not much has changed in the city of Chicago from 1968 when police, every single cop from 68, I'm sure, is long since retired, whacked the hell out of demonstrators at the Democratic National Convention. There is such a cultural difference between, by and large, I'm speaking in general terms here, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that I'm sure it's not the case with absolutely every single police officer and absolutely every single demonstrator. So with that disclaimer put to the side, there is such a cultural gap between people who serve on the Chicago police force and people who take to the streets to protest police brutality, among other things. And so it just seems to me that there's just like this hatred that a lot of cops have for the demonstrators. It's just like there was hatred that a lot of cops had for the hippie demonstrators back in 68. And you got the baton, you got that power, they're yelling things at you. Even if they're not literally in your face yelling things at you, some of the things that they're saying is triggering. And man, you got that baton, whack. I mean, this is old story in Chicago. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot with Troy LaRaviere when he came on the show, and other observers of the protests and the police response. There's never been any kind of investigation, any kind of hearing, any kind of city-run analysis of the strategy that the police were following throughout the summer with these protests. 2, what role Mayor Lori Lightfoot had in all of this. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of what was going on with Popcorn Gate. Remember that one? The police sitting in Bobby Rush's campaign, his congressional office. All these things that happened. Why were all the police surrounding Trump Tower? Why were they protecting Trump Tower? What's with raising the bridges? Whose idea was that? Never any kind of analysis of what the strategy was, whose idea was it to implement the strategy? Did Lori Lightfoot lose control of the police? Or were they acting based on her decisions? None of that. You know, it's like Chicago has amnesia, doesn't want to study it. Just like Lori Lightfoot saying, well, there's some cops are bad apples, but most of them are good. And that's the end of it. So I remember in '68, it took a federal investigation to get at what the police rioting. That's what they called it. So I don't know. Maybe this lawsuit will be the way we finally get some answers to these questions. You know, this is how it goes in Chicago. The same thing happened, by the way, D, in 2003 with the Iraqi war protesters. People took to the streets of Chicago after George W. Bush, invaded Iraq. It's so bizarre how this stuff works out. George W. Bush invaded Iraq. Thousands and thousands of people took to the streets, some of whom are some of the same protesters who took to the streets this time around, the older protesters, obviously. And when they left, they overtook Lakeshore Drive, shut down traffic in the middle of rush hour. And when they left Lakeshore Drive and came back to the Loop, to the Gold Coast, there was mass arrests and there was a lawsuit. And a lot of money was paid out. And that was the only way we got any kind of answers. We didn't really get legitimate answers as what was going on. My humble opinion was Mayor Richard M. Daley's way of showing George W. Bush how much he supported Bush's war effort. It's so funny because Donald Trump, who is now like the champion of the police, pretends as though he was anti-war, like he was against the war in Iraq. And that in retrospect, he wants to undo it. It's so funny. This is the same man who inflames the situation by denouncing all protesters as lawless hooligans and thugs, and sort of justifies in the minds of some cops, you know, whacking them over the head. So ultimately, D, it's going to cost taxpayers the money, I presume. If things go the way they usually do, it'll be a lot of payout for this lawsuit. But I hope along with the payout, we get some answers, finally, to some of the questions I just raised.
All right, in other city news, damn it, it happened again. Someone threw a brick through the front window of 15th Ward Alderman Ray Lopez's Southwest Side office for the third time Thursday night. At about 10:50 p.m., a male threw a brick through the front window of an office in the 2700 block of West 47th Street, and 3 males were seen running from the scene. This is according to Chicago police. Ray Lopez posted a surveillance video to Twitter early Friday showing 3 people throwing bricks at the office and asked the public to help identify the suspect. His office was previously vandalized twice in July with bricks thrown through the front windows. That month, someone also threw a brick into Lopez's Brighton Park home and set fire to a neighbor's garage. Lopez sent out a tweet this morning about it, and he's putting some blame on Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot here and Police Superintendent David Brown. Here's the tweet from Lopez. Tweet. By all means, keep sending our officers downtown, Mayor. At what point will she and Brown realize their policies are fueling brazen acts like this? I will push on, but my residents are sick of living in fear because criminals know they have the upper hand with our district's short officers.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, Ray Lowe comes on this show. Hasn't been on in a couple of weeks. I'm going to bring him on next week after the budget vote. We can talk about all this. I don't know how much this is Lori Lightfoot's fault or David Brown's fault, but clearly Ray Lowe has been targeted by thugs down on the 15th Ward. And I remember in the days of Rahm, when Rahm was the mayor, Ray Lopez had death threats against him. Remember, D? He came into the studio again. He had an undercover police officer with him, a bodyguard.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the whole thing was I said something that was so funny that the bodyguard actually laughed. It's my high point of my interviewing career. But, the guy was like, hey, that's not bad.
Bodyguards love Ben. What can we say?
No, this dude had a stone face. He was pretty kind of a serious looking guy. I forget. I can't remember what I said. It was a long time ago, but he's like, hey, that's not bad. So I don't know, Ray Lowe. We're going to bring Ray Lowe on. Is it Lori's fault? I've not heard. Has Lori Lightfoot said anything defending him?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah.
Lopez said he is working with detectives to identify the individuals involved. He believes the vandalism was gang-related. In a text message to the Chicago Sun-Times Friday morning, Lopez said all items in the office had been boxed and the office closed for the last 2 weeks. He plans to move to a new location. Not the worst idea, Ray Lowe. Also, I saw the picture, and just saying, Ray Lowe, when you get that new location, how about we lose that giant sign that says 15th Ward Alderman Ray Lopez? I think that would really help.
Well, I mean, that's... You can't blame him for putting the sign up. It's like should be allowed to put a sign up without getting someone throwing a brick through his window. It's scary stuff. And I think I don't know. I would appreciate if Mayor Lori Lightfoot would speak out against it. Yeah, I know Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Ray Lowe is a critic. Yeah, and I know it's clearly he irritates the hell out of me. We play that exchange all the time. But I think Ray Lowe serves a very useful, important purpose in his own way. He's emerged as sort of the Scott Wagasback of our era, where he analyzes budgets from just a purely like budget analysis point of view. Doesn't have any political bent so much. He's not like our friends from the Progressive Caucus or from the Democratic Socialist Caucus who want progressive taxation implemented. If Ray Lowe has a political ideology, it's probably well, he'd be really mad at me if I said it's probably closer to Trump than it is to Lori Lightfoot. But it's definitely to the right. But he's just doing basic good government analysis of the budget and how the mayor deals with the city council. And I welcome it. And so I'll probably bring him back to the show in a couple of weeks, Dean, get his thoughts on all this stuff.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit, is what I think.
Yes. That exchange. That one. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ben, remember that time last spring when a botched demolition in Little Village blanketed the community in a thick, filthy plume of dirt and dust? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then remember when the state sued the company, Hillco Redevelopment, over air pollution violations? You remember that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, well, we have a follow-up. Hillco Redevelopment Partners and two contractors will pay only $370,000 to settle the lawsuit. Kim Wasserman, executive director of Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, said the dollar amount is, quote, chump change. Wasserman said it's disappointing, and it continues to show that industry is the priority when it comes to who is being protected.
Yeah. Once again, some kind of investigation would be nice. Like the whole role of the Lightfoot administration in this matter. Did they green light the demolition? I remember that was the issue back then. It's funny how we never really we got city council, we had inspector general, but we never really get to the bottom of anything in Chicago. You know what I mean? Like The TIF program, my favorite example. Never, ever has anybody done an analysis to show how much extra on property taxes you pay through the program. And then so you got the police and how they handled the protesters throughout the summer. Never analysis of that. This is another one. Like Chicago, like, you don't want to know the truth. They got that Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. They just bury all this stuff. I would love to have known what went down there. That was a bizarre. I remember that one very clearly. It was in the earliest days of the pandemic. They thought it was a good idea to tear down this building, like dust everywhere. And the alderman, Michael Rodriguez, said nobody ran it by him. Then the mayor got mad at him. Got mad at that alderman. War of words ensued. And then nobody studies it. Let's just move on. So yeah, 300. I wonder. I haven't seen that story, D. So I don't know where the $370,000 is going. Is it going for what? I don't know. Does it say who's getting the $370,000 or what it's supposed to be used for?
Don't have the story on hand.
I guess. Well, I'll have to look a little further, but could be just one of those. Here's $370,000. Now let this thing go away. All right. Let's turn the page.
Yeah. Let's turn the page now to the news in the rest of Illinois, and it's the only news that anyone in Illinois wants to talk about. Illinois Speaker Mike Madigan. No, that's not your Uber outside. It's actually a giant bus with a lot of your Democratic colleagues on board waiting to roll you over in hopes that you resign. We have more passengers who've jumped on, and you'll find out who they are in moments. But just to make sure we're all on the same page here, on Wednesday, a Mike Madigan confidant, two ComEd bigwigs, and the former president of City Club of Chicago were charged with bribery. And after that news broke, Speaker Madigan, in a 2-page press release, insisted he did nothing wrong. He's not been accused of or charged with any wrongdoing. And essentially, if you want him out, vote him out. Until then, get lost. Since then, we have more people waiting to get on the bus ready to roll over the speaker. We've seen quite a few Democratic politician press releases stating that it's time for a new speaker, and we'll find out who's new to the party in moments. But now to today's news. During his Thursday COVID-19 press briefing, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker gave his latest thoughts on Madigan Gate. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Rachel Hinton, who, by the way, has been killing it with her coverage on all of this. It says here, days after an election night bruising, Governor J.B. Pritzker answered with a simple yes when asked whether Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan needed to go as state Democratic Party chair. But 4 indictments and over 2 weeks later, the governor was less forceful Thursday in calling for Madigan to step down as House Speaker. Pritzker said, quote, if Speaker Madigan wants to continue in a position of enormous public trust with such a serious ethical cloud hanging over his head, then he has to, at the very least, be willing to stand in front of the press and the people and answer every last question to their satisfaction. Written statements and dodged investigatory hearings are not going to cut it. If the speaker cannot commit to that level of transparency, then the time has come for him to resign as speaker. Pritzker went on to say that state residents, quote, do not deserve a political circus on top of dealing with a pandemic that has upended lives and livelihoods. But he said it's ultimately up to state lawmakers to decide who will lead them. Asked to clarify if he agreed with Senator Dick Durbin that the party needed new leadership, the governor simply responded, yes.
Yeah, well, there's a big difference between taking a position on Madigan stepping down as chairman of the Democratic Party, which is what Durbin did, and then dashing off to Washington. Well, he did that. Now I'm gone. Got another 6 years in Washington. And being the governor of the state of Illinois and having to deal with the state house after you've urged Madigan to step down as House Speaker. And guess what? He doesn't step down. Then what do you do? So that's why JB's... It's a little more of a challenge for J.B. Pritzker. And this, once again, I say this all the time. It's a lot harder to be J.B. Pritzker right now with all the problems that Illinois is facing with Madigan as the embattled Speaker of the House in the midst of a pandemic that half the state doesn't think is real. than it is to be Senator Durbin or Senator Duckworth or even Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, when it comes to the pandemic, exists in a little bubble of Chicago where people take the pandemic seriously. She doesn't have to deal with MAGA out there. So this is another example of how tough it is to be the governor of the state of Illinois, which is a state, ladies and gentlemen, that is got lots of MAGA parts to it. Look the other way. You live in Chicago in the bubble. You don't realize a good chunk of the state is just like Michigan, just like Indiana. And Pritzker has to deal with that. Now, listen, I've been saying this for a long time, D. The first part of what Pritzker says. The days of Michael Madigan playing the Madigan game are over. The old Wizard of Oz hiding out in his office, issuing statements through his press spokesperson from time to time. That doesn't cut it anymore. When you're like the centerpiece of this investigation that's closing in on you, and when you are the face that the Republican Party uses to undercut Democratic candidates and Democratic initiatives throughout the state, and successfully have done that. You got to forcefully stand up and defend yourself and defend your career to people in Illinois. You can't just hide back. Like all those years when Rauner was governor and he would bash Madigan, and Madigan's like, I'm not going to dignify it by responding. Well, that may have worked with Rauner because he was so unpopular. There is no Rauner on the scenes anymore. So the Wizard of Oz game is not working. You either come out and defend yourself or step down. Now, we'll probably get into this much more as you do the updates, D. But the reality is Pritzker does not know if the votes exist to defeat Madigan. So he doesn't stick his neck out and say he has to go and then turn around and then lose that power battle. Although I kind of wish he would, to be honest with you. I kind of wish he would just forcefully take a freaking stand on this thing. I've call on Republicans to do the same regarding Trump, and they won't. And I'm going to continue hammering this drum, D, because it's so hypocritical for Republicans to act as though Michael Madigan is the greatest threat democracy faces right now, when Donald Trump's bringing in legislators from Michigan to undo the will of the people and trying to throw out the votes from Detroit, which is more brazen than anything Michael Madigan has ever done. So I'm not going to let Republicans off the hook. But I feel as that J.B. Pritzker should be a little more forceful in this. He knows how detrimental Michael Madigan is to his initiative. He saw what happened to the fair tax. He saw what happened to Judge Kilbride. So I wish he would speak out more. But that cautiousness, that fear of Madigan, apparently is still prevalent.
Now, remember, everybody, not every Democrat in Illinois is calling for Madigan to resign. There are some standing by the speaker, and I have a statement to back it up. Chicago Federation of Labor President Bob Reiter on Thursday voiced unwavering support for Speaker Michael Madigan. Reiter told Fran Spielman on The Fran Spielman Show, which you can download now at the Chicago Sun-Times website and wherever you download podcasts. Reiter said, quote, "The people that you've worked with to help make everyday people's lives better, you can't just walk away from that situation, especially in a situation like this where there's this appearance that's been created that may in fact be divorced from actual reality."
No, that's Bob Reiter, my dear friend who came to my rescue after I got fired. Love you always, Bob Reiter. That's why Michael Madigan has to be forceful. We should not have to rely on Bob Reiter and House Democrats to speak up for Madigan. Madigan should come out and speak out for himself. Madigan should defend himself. No more two-page press releases that read as though they were written by a committee of lawyers, publicists, poets. I like the one where you go, there was like a little poetic edge to. We talked about it yesterday. Madigan has to come out and defend himself. And he has to be forceful about it. And he has to explain the way Bob Ryder explained why he, Madigan, has been good for the people of Illinois. Otherwise, they'll use him like a piñata. They'll be pounding him. And by the way, I'm just going to say they're going to use Madigan to undercut pensions in the state. You watch. They use Madigan to undercut the fair tax. They use Madigan to undercut Judge Kilbride. They use Madigan against every politician, every Democratic politician in the state, whether they had a relationship with Madigan or not. So if Madigan's not willing to defend himself, if Madigan's not willing to, I hate to say play a trump card, but to fight a little bit, then he's leaving his supporters hanging. Now, I know why labor supports Madigan. Madigan stood by them. Madigan protected union rights in this state during the 4 years of Rauner. Rauner declared war. That's what that was about, ladies and gentlemen. Bruce Rauner was trying to destroy unions in the state of Illinois, and Madigan kept him from doing it. And if it wasn't for Madigan, Rauner may have succeeded. Because I know Rahm Emanuel wasn't standing up for unions, and I don't think John Cullerton, who was the Senate president, was standing up for unions. So I understand why labor's very loyal. Even lefty labor, like my dear friends at Chicago Teachers Union. You don't hear them calling for Madigan to step down, do you, D? So, Madigan was there for labor. And so labor's going to be there. One thing I learned, I got to tell you, labor is very loyal. Union guys are very loyal. And if they think that you've been a friend of them, they'll stand by you. I learned this the hard way when I was fired. So I can understand why Ryder is standing by Madigan. And I don't think Madigan's doing much good help to the Bob Ryders of the world by not speaking out forcefully for himself.
Yeah, shout out to Bob Ryder, die Ryder. All right. And while it looks like Madigan may be down, we have some political bigwigs and political know-it-alls reminding us not to count him out. Here's a quote from former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar. Edgar said, quote, "I would not count him out." See, he said it. He also said he's the smartest guy in the Capitol building and very determined, and he's not going to go easily. Edgar went on to say, quote, "Maybe it is the end. We'll see. But again, my experience has been with Madigan is that he's a smart guy." And here's Ace Springfield reporter Mark Maxwell on Twitter. We had him on the show back in the day.
Yes, we did.
Mark Maxwell says, "This is all fascinating to watch play out, but Madigan still has 55 votes and a very loyal base. No one else is remotely close. Madigan's magic has been in uniting warring factions in the caucus, and I wouldn't count him out until someone else can show they can do that too."
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, that's, he's got 55 votes, huh? He needs 60, right? Isn't that what he needs? And I'm no damn Biss, but 55 is not 60. So he's going to have, look, I know he'll get on that phone. He'll sweet talk somebody. The deal is this. If he does not have enough votes on the Democratic side to be reelected as Speaker, then he's going to have to get some votes from the Republican side. My recommendation to the Republican Party is that they should vote for him. I urge all Republicans legislators to vote for Michael Madigan. Why? Because obviously he's the best tool you have against Democrats. Duh, that's why. You wouldn't have defeated Thomas Kilbride if it wasn't for the way you used Madigan in those commercials. And you wouldn't have defeated the fair tax the way you used Madigan. And you wouldn't have driven Betsy Dirksen-Londrigan, excuse me. She wouldn't have been drubbed as like she was in her congressional race if it wasn't for Madigan. So, I'm just saying, maybe you should consider Republicans voting for him so he's around. But that said, the point that Edgar and Maxwell making is a very good one, D. Who's going to dare to stand up on the Democratic side and challenge Madigan? And so this will be a show that'll be unfolding for quite a while, because if nobody steps up challenge him, then you were going to be asking those Democrats who've said they're not going to vote for him to vote for a Republican. And I know that's not going to happen. So, yeah, this will be very interesting to watch this one play out. Michael Joseph Madigan obviously is not going anywhere anytime soon. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Maybe the Republicans will give him the votes. That would be something. Darren Bailey suddenly, because a ringing defense of Madigan.
Yeah, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens here. But, Ben, like I said, we have a couple of folks waiting outside, waiting to get on this bus to roll over the speaker. We're being rude, all right? So let's welcome them on board. Ben, please watch your feet. First up, it's Representative Margaret Croak of Chicago. All right, welcome. Hey, Margaret, pay. Thank you. Croak was recently elected to represent some of the cities near North Side and lakefront neighborhoods. She joined the other representatives who said they would not be supporting the speaker for re-election on Thursday, saying, quote, Springfield cannot afford distractions that take our focus off of meeting those challenges head on.
Yeah, if you recall, Margaret Croak was a supporter of J.B. Pritzker, and he endorsed her in that race. So, I'm not surprised that she has spoken out against Madigan. Again, Madigan's not particularly popular with the north side of Chicago crowd. And I've talked about this a lot. I've written about it a lot. It used to be in the old days that the north side of Chicago was the land of the lakefront liberals. And it was sort of a derisive name that was applied to them by members of the regular organization and Mike Royko, the great Chicago Daily News columnist. But the notion was that these were people who were anti-war, pro-civil rights, and they tied those larger movements to the effort in Chicago to have good government. So it was all kind of tied together. The connections to like the lefty movements is pretty much gone to a large degree. Donald Trump, I think, got, I forget how much, off the top of my head, significant percentage of votes from the 42nd Ward, the Gold Coast, and the 43rd Ward, and the 40. I don't even think he got that high in the 44th. But in general, he does better in these wards than you would think. They're not that liberal, particularly on issues of taxation. They feel they're overtaxed to a large degree. And Michael Madigan represents what? Something unseemly to them. It's not like a hugely pro-union area. So Michael Madigan's not that popular on the north side of Chicago. And there's something uncouth about the speaker in that area. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that North Side legislators would be a little reluctant to sign on to Madigan, and because their constituents don't like Madigan. I know, I live on the north side of Chicago. I know how North Siders feel about Madigan. They don't like him. They kind of like, they read about him in the Tribune and they hear about him on WBEZ, and they're like, this is not how government should work. This is corrupt, Ben. You should take a stand against Michael Madigan. And I'm always a little reluctant to go along with him, D, because it's like, I'll take a stand against Michael Madigan when you guys take a stand for unions. How about that? I'm looking at the bigger picture about Democratic politics and the splits and divisions within the Democratic Party. And so many of my friends of the liberal persuasion who live on the north side, that really believe in a woman's right to choose, and they really believe in environmental regulations to keep the lake from being polluted, and they like the notion of good government. But they, Ben, the unions, I don't know. There's something so unseemly about the teachers' union. Isn't that funny? Republican advances occurred in Wisconsin and Michigan at roughly the same time. They were undercutting collective bargaining and undercutting the unions. Attacks on unions are really attacks on Democratic Party. So when you hurt the unions, guys, I hate to say this, Northsiders, you're hurting the movement for reproductive rights. You're hurting the movement for environmental protections. All the things you say you believe in, you're undercutting. So Madigan stood up for the unions. But you find it unseemly. So you don't want to, get too close to that. And I understand why Northside reps, D, are turning against Madigan. They're going where their people are going. I just wish they would pause for a moment and think. Like, when you're in a coalition, you're only as strong as every group in that coalition. So if you have a disdain for unions and you think they're unseemly and you don't care if Bruce Rauner undercuts them and passes laws that take away collective bargaining rights, files lawsuits that undercut collective bargaining rights, don't be surprised when Illinois follows Wisconsin and Michigan and goes from blue to red. Just saying, don't be surprised, because unions are part of the coalition as well. So, D, I'm not surprised that Northsiders, lakefront liberals, they're not really strong on union rights by and large.
All right, we got another state rep jumping on the bus here, ready to move on from Madigan. And Ben, I need you to move on from the door. You're in the way. Come on, move. Let's welcome Buffalo Grove State Rep Daniel Didek. Or is it Didek? Didek? I don't know. Get on the bus. Here's the statement from Didek, I guess. I don't know. If you're coming to this show for correct pronunciation of last names, boy, I'm sorry to disappoint. Here's the statement. Quote, today I inform my colleagues that I believe now is the time, for the first time in 4 decades, for the House Democratic Caucus to choose a new Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. It is critical that our work to select a new leader begins today. Every candidate for this important office deserves a fair shot, and each member deserves the opportunity for their voice to be heard and respected. I am fully confident that we can soon select a speaker who will unite our caucus so we can continue our important work serving the people of Illinois. And we have one more state rep patiently waiting outside. It's 3rd District State Rep Eva Dina Delgado. Get on this bus. That's it. Delgado said, quote, the ongoing allegations surrounding Speaker Madigan have become a distraction from the important work before us during these unprecedented times. Therefore, I will not be supporting Speaker Madigan in his run for re-election as the Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. Our state has some serious issues to address, and now is the time for new leadership. So those are our new members that we got on the bus now. The bus waiting to roll over Speaker Madigan in hopes that he will resign. And with all of these late state reps jumping on, Ben, we need to do a little roll call, all right? I believe we are now at 18 state reps who are ready to roll this bus over Speaker Madigan. So let's do this. Let's do a quick roll call here. All right, roll call, guys. Gazzardi? Ever since Gazzardi's got on this bus, he's just been a pain in my neck. Hey, come, sit in the back. Okay, here we go. Roll call. State reps, we got Jonathan Carroll, Kelly Cassidy, Deb Conroy, Margaret Croak, Eva Dina Delgado, Daniel Didek. Didek? Is it Didek or Didek? Who cares? Daniel. We got Robin Gable. We got Jennifer Gong Gershowitz, Will Gazzardi, Tara Costa Howard, Stephanie Kifowit, Lindsay LaPointe, Anna Moeller, Bob Morgan, Anna Stava Murray, Maurice West, Ann Williams, and Sam Yangling, all on the bus.
Yeah. As I said, they're from either the north side of Chicago, suburban Cook County. Delgado's an interesting one. If you recall, Madigan opposed her appointment when she first became appointed to fill that vacancy for that state rep seat. So I'm not surprised at all that she turned against him. And then, of course, like Lake County, but you said the Didek's from Buffalo Grove. So these are areas where, again, these are sort of like the purple areas of Illinois where Madigan's not popular. And if the Democratic Party is going to prevail in those areas. They don't need Madigan as a tool against them. This is why, again, Michael Madigan, if you want to stick around, you have to defend yourself. You have to give a reason for people to support you. And it's funny because everybody gets a little lawyer-like when it comes to these things. Well, he hasn't been charged. It's all innocent to proven otherwise. Absolutely, that's the case in a criminal proceeding. We're talking about a political proceeding, and we're talking about public perception, and we're talking about how the Republicans will continue to use Madigan to defeat every initiative Democrats want to accomplish, unless Madigan somehow at this late moment in his career decides to radically change the way he does business and emerge from the back rooms and be a forceful champion of his own cause and his own political beliefs and his own democratic values. I don't see that happening. This guy has built his power on this mystique of Madigan in the back rooms, and only a few people get ushered in. He makes a few phone calls. He just limits the public's access to him. So I don't think he's going to change any time. And I've been really thinking about what Edgar had to say. I don't know what these Dems are going to do who say they're not going to vote for Madigan. I don't know. Until Madigan steps down, which I don't see happening, or until some Democrat steps forward to run against Madigan and try to win over the rest of the Dems. The 50, you said 55 were loyal to Madigan. Is that what you said, D? 55? That sounds like a lot. 50. Tell you what, the man's a survivor. But until that happens, I don't know where we're going with this. This will be a topic of conversation in the state of Illinois for the next month, and the happiest people will be the Kenny G's of the world, because they will be exploiting it. They'll be exploiting it every way they can to undercut, particularly union rights in the state of Illinois. Because one thing they despise is when workers have some rights that defend them from being just unduly fired, from being converted into at-will employees, to having their pay cut. So, yeah, this is not a great moment for Democrats. My beloved Democratic Party, you are in a pickle, my friends, trying to figure this one out.
Hey, Gazzardi, no one cares about the alligator in the lake anymore. Good Lord. Still talking about this Humboldt Park gator thing.
Oh, the good old days, the gator in Humboldt Park. Think about the summer. Was that 2019, D?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no pandemic. There was no Madigan. I actually think there was Madigan Gate. That was the beginning of Madigan Gate. But it was all kind of in the distance, and there was just a gator in the Humboldt Park Lagoon. And hipsters could just stroll over to the lagoon every day and, just sit out there and listen to Wilco, look at the gator, and life was good, wasn't it, D?
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Yeah, now we got Gazzardi over here selling gator T-shirts on the bus. Hey, knock it off.
Was that Will Gazzardi in that bit?
It may have been. I don't know. I just have the audio. I don't know who actually said it.
Could have been Gazzardi.
All right, so there you are. And Ben, I've been keeping track here, and I'm all caught up, all right? And last time we checked, dude, you were on the bus. So, I was listening to what you were saying here, so I guess we got to ask you one time here. Are you on or off? What's going on?
Where am I today? Hold on, D. Let me open the window and see which way the wind's blowing. I don't want to get the speaker mad at me. D, the speaker gets mad at me. He'll take away my bathroom pass. I don't want to get in trouble. Can we all get along, D? Huh? Can we all get along?
No.
I'm off the bus now. I'm all off the bus.
All right.
I'm ride or die with Madigan.
Off the bus. He's on the bus. He's off the bus. He's on the bus. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. Then he jumps off the bus. Our host, guys. He's a squirrely one.
I'm off the bus. It's ride or die with Michael Joseph Madigan. Show some respect, D. Sit up straight, okay?
No.
And eat an apple.
No. Well, I do like apples. All right, everybody, that's the news. We're going to take a break here, but remember, you can find us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can always send us an email, BennyJShow@gmail.com. Leave your name and where you're from if you'd like us to read your email on the show. It's pretty helpful. And also, you can call us, 708-658-4788. The number again, 708-658-4788. Reach out to the Ben Joravsky Show. We're not going to answer, but you can leave us a voicemail, and there's a good chance we will play your voicemail on the show. Maybe not the next day. In fact, it may be a month later, like Mike Girardi's call from a few days ago, but we will play that voicemail, all right? Just hang tight with us, okay, guys? It's just me and Ben doing this show. It gets a little overwhelming. Several hats on the Ben Joravsky Show, all right, guys? And also, if you're listening on the download, we encourage you to check out part 2 of the program. That's the Rummana Rundown with Sun Times editor Rummana Hussain, and that's coming up next on the Ben Joravsky Show. Don't go anywhere.
Open up wide, take a look inside, keep an open mind. If you got a racist fool, kick him off page 2, but keep his point of view. Why? The anti-labor world's greatest newspaper will always be here for you. So come on.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit, is what I think. If you think we
No, first, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit?
I
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Reader and the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, take it away.
Every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show, Rummana Hussain, editor, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, my beloved bright one, joins us. Rummana, are you on the road today somewhere? Or are you?
Yeah, I might be. I'm at my mom's house. I'm socially distanced in my old bedroom. I'm waiting for my sister, and then we're gonna head out to Old Orchard. So you might see some movement at some point.
Okay.
Or you hear some noise, but I'm gonna be stable for a few minutes at least.
Let's just think about the Hussain sisters going back in time, hanging out at the mall.
We you know what? I love Old Orchard, and we actually it's a normal activity for me and my younger sister. We're actually going mostly for my older sister who just had a birthday last week. And me and my younger sister are more of the shopaholics, and we end up buying something for them. We end up buying stuff for ourselves, but we haven't gone to the mall that much. But Old Orchard's like a different mall because it's not indoors; it's kind of an outdoor mall. So I've always liked Old Orchard, and I actually didn't go to the mall that much as a kid. My mom wouldn't let me.
I'm trying to picture a young Rummana Hussain circa 1987. This is not what I was going to ask you when the interview began, but I'm just curious. Like, what would you have been doing on a Saturday afternoon back in 1987, 88?
Afternoon, maybe not much, but like sometimes in the night or like some afternoons I'd be with friends hanging out. But I mean, I was a fashion victim, but thank God my mom wouldn't let me get a perm. So I never had a perm, but when I look at pictures, I did have big hair, but it wasn't that bad. If you look at my high school yearbook, you'll laugh because, some of the pictures I look awkward. I think I had braces my freshman year. I still had my braces, but I was less awkward by 87, but still, stuck at, very 80s.
Well, at least you don't have, to your everlasting embarrassment, 3 pictures in the high school yearbook, as I do, a charter member of the White Sox fan club. I can never pretend I was cool because I was in the White Sox, but I love White Sox. Oh my God, we're going to have another meeting?
Well, at least you weren't on the chess club. I did make fun of people in the chess club. And I know we talked about Queen's Gambit. No,
I wish I were. I
know.
Chess club is way cooler than the White Sox fan club. I just got to say, all right.
I had a family friend, I knew him, and he would always make fun of me he thought I was dumb, but I really wasn't. And he was always shocked that I'd do better than him on tests. And he was on the chess team, so I'd make fun of him for being on the chess team.
Well, I wish I were on the chess team. All right, since you mentioned fashions and perms and hair, it's a natural lead into Rudy Giuliani.
Oh, yeah.
I opened the show with it. Then we spent about a half an hour talking about Michael Joseph Madigan, and now I'm back to Giuliani. Let me just say this before we get started. What Giuliani is doing with Donald Trump is a flat-out coup. This is me speaking, not Rummana. But what he's doing to try to decertify the vote out of Detroit is such a blatant act of racism, Rummana, in my humble opinion. It's despicable. We'll get into how he undercuts his attempts with his just utter buffoonery in a little bit. But we just have to start off by saying that trying to, just like when you say, let's decertify Detroit, you're kind of being specific about what you're up to. Don't you agree?
Of course. It's like Detroit. I mean, whenever there's a politician who brings up Detroit, you know what it's code for, right? Whenever people in Chicago said, oh, Chicago's going to become like Detroit, it's just, I don't know. It's like I don't even know if it's a dog whistle, but Detroit, they have like a significant African-American population. It's targeting Black people. And it's just incredible what's happening in the country right now. And, the interesting thing is like Rudy Giuliani was considered this hero after 9/11. And I was just talking to my sister and mom about him. And I said, if he just stayed quiet, he still would have gone down in history as a hero. But, the last couple of months, he's just unraveling. And maybe he's always been. I actually was never like, I can tell you, I know the Muslim community didn't find him a heroic figure past 9/11. So for me, he was never someone that I was like put on pedestal, but he was put on this pedestal and he could have stayed there. But, he's kind of, I think for a lot of people, he's just fallen down really hard. But for someone like him, he doesn't think he's fallen down. I mean, just with the Borat film and then just yesterday and his, whatever that was dripping down his like face. I mean, there were so many memes on Twitter about it, about his, brain leaking, about, excrement falling down his face. And so it's just, he just kind of become a buffoon for a lot of people. I know for some people, he's still, there's a group of people, or there are probably some people who find him still think he's respectable, but I think a lot of people think that he's kind of fallen pretty hard.
Well, I don't think anything, how do I put this? Illustrates the divide in America between MAGA and the rest of America. If you think that Rudy Giuliani with sprayed on dye dripping down his sweat-soaked cheeks is heroic. I mean, if you actually think that's heroic,
well, I don't know if they think he's heroic, but just like being on Trump's team, it's they still think he's a revered figure, right? I mean, some people will say like, how does anybody think Donald Trump is heroic? But people do think he's heroic, right? There's a group of people who think he's heroic.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go back to something before we get to play this bit, a little comic relief before we play this bit. You said about in the aftermath of 9/11, your attitudes about Giuliani as a Muslim American, you didn't have the greatest, you didn't share.
I didn't share the enthusiasm that everybody had for Rudy Giuliani, because here I was part of a group that was being vilified and then surveillanced. And then, I think, obviously 9/11 was a tragedy, and what happened was a tragedy. Nobody thought that was a good thing. But I think what had happened is, I think a lot of people were so angered and saddened that they kind of came together and condoned this surveillance and profiling of a certain group of people because of what had happened. I just thought it was a collective, for someone being as part of that group, it was kind of a collective, like, you're all guilty. And I thought a lot of people played into that part, even people who were on the left, not necessarily you, Ben, because I didn't know you, but I can't see you doing that. But a lot of people did justify it. I mean, even in like the newsroom, I would hear like negative comments about Muslims and, who we are as a group. And, and then for the next couple of years and to this day, whenever there's like, and this is what I say about MAGA people, which I find incredibly frustrating. It's like, there's people, there's so many people I know who have relatives who support MAGA, but they're not guilty by association. But when there was a bombing halfway across the world, like I'd get journalists in the newsroom and start lecturing me and telling me that, I need to change, the Muslims need to stand up and change. And why aren't we speaking out and telling, our fellow Muslims that they can't do this? So I would be blamed for things that happened overseas. So I just thought the Giuliani thing, where it was like people kind of didn't question anything he said. And I'm sure some of the things that he did were, he probably behaved appropriately as a politician should, but it was kind of like the beginning of this vilification. I mean, the vilification was already there, but this just kind of codified it and in many ways put it into law.
I got to say that Rudy Giuliani's downfall happened in part because of the adulation he received because of 9/11. When I think back on, I followed his career. He seems to just lost all sense of proportion.
Yeah.
So much adulation poured on him for the way he performed in those first few days after the attack on the World Trade Towers. And then it just went to his head, Rummana.
Yeah, that's probably possible. But you would think that, let's just hold on to that legacy instead of like tumbling down from like whatever pedestal he was on. But,
All right, let's push him down that pedestal a little more. I find him a really loathsome figure right now in American history. And so I got a kick out of this bit, which I know you've heard, but let's just share it. I've been promoting it all day.
Okay.
I don't know who the dude is that put it together. I don't know the voice of the person, but he's a very he's a very funny guy in my humble opinion. He does a play-by-play of Rudy Giuliani, one particularly grotesque part of the performance. So Dee, play the clip called Booger.
Yo, watch my man's over here. Yo, takes out the handkerchief, blowing his nose, takes it booger side in, smears his hands all over it, wipes it into his lips, all over his face. Son, he's wiping snot all over his face, smearing his hands into it. Looks like shit, bro. And he's gonna fucking touch the podium.
Yes, the play-by-play. It's all true, folks. Everything that guy said,
yeah,
Giuliani did. Rummana, it's really hard to take serious Giuliani at this time when he should really be taken serious, because what he's espousing is to like a coup, but he literally did that with the whole country watching.
The funny thing is that clip that you just played me, a friend of mine at like 1 a.m., he sent it to me and my younger sister. And I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, what did he send me at like, what did he send us at like 1 o'clock? And then I just saw my sister's response, like, gross, that's so disgusting. And then, they're laughing about it. And I was like, so then I woke up in the morning and I played it. So I did watch that like right before I came. See, I did the homework even before you assigned it to me.
Yeah, I signed Rummana that.
So yeah, I watched it this morning and I'm like, oh my God, it was exact same. It was the same. It was somebody tweeted the exact same guy doing the play-by-play, and then he took the podium, and then his hair color or his, whatever that touch-up dye was dripping down his face, and it just couldn't get worse. And that's the funny thing. It's like everybody knows what the context is, but I think a lot of people in my circle and probably in your circle, all they were doing was sharing pictures of Giuliani's face and the dye dripping down and his like wiping his nose and blowing his nose. That's what it was. I mean, everybody knew the context of it. And I have seen about all the discussion about the votes and how disrespectful it is to, the black voters and the suppression and all that stuff. So it's like, I guess it's comic relief in the tragic, scenario that we're seeing played out in the United States right now.
Yeah, well put. And by the way, just one more time, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're going to talk about this and the impact on Thanksgiving. Talk about two countries. This collection of humanity, I have that word in quotes, that Giuliani assembled for his press conference. So he's at a podium with the microphone, and he's surrounded by his supporters and allies, other lawyers. They'll come forward and speak on Trump's behalf, spreading conspiracies, completely unfounded, just polluting the air with all their garbage. No one's wearing a mask. Giuliani is blowing his nose in his handkerchief, literally wiping his face with the handkerchief. Nobody, and then shaking hands, No, it's like, how could you take the Republican Party seriously, Rummana? I know you have to play it straight because as a journalist, but how can you take them seriously?
I know, and you know what the funny thing is, like my mom, my mom's become like a big, she watches CNN like almost every day. She's been watching the elections pretty closely. And even my mom was telling me a few seconds ago, she goes, all these people who are like in Trump's cabinets and all the people that are speaking out for him, she goes, they all look so slobby and messy. Like, she goes, like, nobody looks like dignified. And she told me that she thought she thought someone had beaten him up when she saw that thing dripping down his face. She was asking my younger sister if somebody beat him up. And then she goes, I didn't realize it was hair dye or whatever it was. And she goes, I just thought he was in a fight or something. So it's pretty funny.
For the record, my wife, who's a hairdresser, has been a hairdresser since the 70s, said he's spray on.
Yeah.
He sprayed something on, or whoever passes as his beauty consultant sprayed it on, and then it just ran as he was sweating. It's coming down.
I mean, I sent you that. I was going to ask you to send Pam that New York Times article where they talked to different hairdressers and said it's actually not hair dye, but it was probably some sort of touch-up dye, and then or some touch-up material, and then he was just sort of sweating profusely, which to be fair, if there's lights on you, that could happen. But, it went wrong and just dripped down.
All right, let's move on from Giuliani's wretched performance and his attempted coup and talk about an essay, more homework that I sent Rummana. Poor Rummana. Every Friday I'm sending her stuff. But I actually think you had read this one already. A columnist for the New York Times, or a contributing writer. I don't know if he's a regular columnist.
Yeah, he's a contributor. Wahajat Ali. Yeah,
yes.
Wahajat Ali, yeah.
And reach out to Trump supporters. I said, I tried. This gets at something that only Democrats do this.
Yeah.
So in the aftermath of 2016, when Donald Trump got to be the president, even though he didn't get a majority of the votes, let's think about that for a moment. Democrats were looking in the mirror and saying, we've done something wrong. We should really try to understand the people who voted for Donald Trump. And Mr. Ali here, I don't want to butcher his pronunciation of his first name, but he was one of the leading advocates of that. And he was going to go out and listen to Trump supporters and support Trump supporters, just hear their concerns. And then he came back after 4 years of doing this with the conclusion, that doesn't really work. Your thoughts,
Well, I thought it was
Rummana?
pretty interesting that you gave me his column. I do follow Wahajat Ali on Twitter, and I should tell you, he's kind of a controversial figure. I shouldn't say controversial, but on Muslim Twitter, there's a lot of hate against him. They think he's a little too soft, and there's some controversy in the past, but we don't have to get into that. But I still follow him. He's sometimes on CNN, and sometimes I like his stuff. Sometimes I think he's a little corny. And I've met him before, actually, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He was speaking at this event that my friends had coordinated. It seems like a nice guy. He had a tragedy happen, like his young daughter had cancer, so I was following that on Twitter, and she's okay, thank God. So I do follow him. Sometimes I disagree with him, and I agree with the hate against him, and then sometimes I'm like, oh well, he's not that. But I thought this column was interesting. I mean, a lot of people would say, like, why did you even go and talk to these people? They're not going to listen. And so he did try. You have to give him, credit for trying. People are saying that you should reach out across the aisle, right? But there's a lot of people, like, a lot of people of color, like, why would I try to understand people whose main ideology is to hate who I am or hate my existence? I've seen a lot of that on Twitter the last couple of days when people are like, well, you should reach out to Trump supporters and people and they're feeling the same way you felt in 2016. And a lot of people are like, no, thank you. But, Wahajat seemed to reach out, and, he speaks at a lot of places. He gives TED Talks, and he tried to reach out. He went to all these different places all across the country and tried to talk. And, people came up to him and they said the same things that we've been hearing all along. Like, well, I really don't like Donald Trump. I don't like his, I don't like the way he's speaking, but, he's giving out a strong, he's making the economy strong. And then other people are saying that, they talk to him, and this is something that's very common for like a lot of Muslim people, where they told him that he's one of the good Muslims, after he talked. And, he said that it just didn't work. He didn't really change anybody's minds after talking to them. He was trying to find some commonalities, and it just didn't seem to click. So I actually did like the column when I read it. He's here, he is a brown Muslim guy saying that he did reach out, and it didn't really help. And he's just saying, there's no point in doing it. And he's like, I don't really want, he goes, now at this point, I really don't want to try to understand the architects of, the hatred or something. It was some sort of like, I'm probably paraphrasing, but I remember he used that word. So.
Well, it's really hard to find some common ground with a MAGA hat wearer who is endorsing the decertification of the vote in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yes,
that's really an extreme point of view, I would have to say.
Yeah.
You know, I have never, I've been voting Democrat pretty much my whole life. I don't think I've ever seriously attempted to say, okay, let's just take the reddest district pick a state, the state of Wisconsin, and just decertify it so the Democrats win, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to find common ground with people who feel as though they can just throw out the Constitution when it suits their need. And I'll say this, Rummana, I can't recall, this is such a Democratic thing to try to reach out to the other side. I've been voting Democrat all these years. I don't recall a Republican ever saying, you know, let's reach out to people like Ben and see how they view. Let's reach out to Rummana Hussain and see how she views the world so we can bring her over. What can we say to Rummana and Ben? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And, you know, they do reach out to people like me that they reach out to the Muslims like me who say everything they want to hear. That's the kind of people they reach out to. You know, the people who say stuff like, you know, oh yeah, Muslims should be profiled. I'm Muslim and I should be profiled. You know, people kind of like, we call them the self-hating Muslims, like, you know, who like just want to say what the right thing is to say. And they're kind of funded by a lot of these right-wing groups. So, I mean, there is a definitely group, we all know who they are. And so, yeah, they do reach out in the people who think like them, but they don't try to reach out to people who don't think like them, which is what the Democrats constantly encourage, which doesn't make sense on the other hand either.
Yeah. All right, let's move on for Donald Trump and talk about the president who was in office before Donald Trump, and that would be Barack Obama. His book has just come out. It's over 700 pages. I can tell you right now, I probably won't read it.
My mother-in-law sent us a group text a few days ago, and she said, "I'm just going to give you guys what word did she use? God, I'm forgetting the term, but she said just a hint, don't get the book." You know, so that means she's giving us the book. She's gotten ordered all of us some copies, and I don't know if you read the Chicago Tribune review of the book, but it was pretty interesting. It sounds like it's going to be more like his second book, and not his first memoir. Yeah. You know, I don't know if you read Obama's books.
So in other words, it'd be not what you're really saying. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be more of like, you know, it's not the red states or the blue states. It's the United States. Yeah. And Mick Dumke, my husband, had heard that he talks about racism, but he kind of like, he's not like giving excuses for racism, but just saying like why racism exists. But it's kind of like a weak. He's read. I mean, he's not saying this, but he was just saying that it was like a weak, like, you know, not defense, but just like kind of explanation of what racism is. And I was reading this Tribune review about him, and they talk about the whole beer summit.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was talking to my husband earlier this week, and I'm like, why didn't that even have to happen? Like, I go, if it was the other way around and it was a black officer, no black officer would be invited to the White House. And we're talking a little bit about that and how Obama had to like step back from a lot of connections that he had. And I was just saying, it's just so unfair that he has to do that. And his book, yeah, it seems like it's more like his second book. It's less. I mean, I was reading some excerpts from it, and then, you know, of course, I had to chuckle when the Tribune reporter had pointed out that he referred to Rahm Emanuel as quote darkly handsome. As soon as I read that part, I showed it to Mick. I'm like, did you see that? And then I go, look what he calls your boy. He's more like your boy too. So I was like.
No, that was pretty funny. Rummana sent me homework. She sent me that text. We'll get into Rahm as darkly handsome. But the beer summit that Rummana's alluding to, I don't know if people remember, Henry Louis Gates, professor at Harvard.
I should explain, yeah.
Yeah, was stopped outside his house by a police officer who somehow or other thought that Henry Louis Gates. And they ended up... the Chicago Sun-Times was the person who asked the question to Barack Obama at the press conference. And I forget what Obama said, like the guy was acting stupid.
Stupidly. He said stupidly or something, yeah.
And Obama said, I read that Lynn Sweet's column about it in his book. that it was all pretty much downhill for him after that. And so he, that notion that you could criticize a police, who is roughing up another ammunition to MAGA. Well, wasn't MAGA yet, pre-MAGA, and he said it was all downhill. And then they had the beer summit. They dragged poor Biden in, make him drink along. Hey, we got white guys too, huh?
And that's the thing. It's like, God, Obama just said stupidly. Like, look at what Donald Trump has gotten away with on Twitter and saying all different kinds of things. Obama wore the dad jeans at your favorite ballpark. And that was like, a hoot. And then everybody started, making fun of him when he wore his tan suit. I mean, I'm just saying all these things Obama got, even the little funny things that he got ripped on for. I mean, just saying stupidly or stupid that he acted stupid was like such a huge deal. And now we have this president who was like, goes off on Twitter calling different people different names. And, we saw him before he was elected, or was it after he was elected when he was making fun of a disabled reporter?
Yeah. And before he was elected.
Yeah. And he got away with it. He got elected president.
By the way, here's the quote. Rahm Emanuel is darkly handsome and Vladimir Putin is unremarkable with a wrestler's build. And this writer points out that Obama fastidiously avoids such descriptions for most of the women who come across the stage. And there's no truth to the rumor that Rummana Hussain has put out that I am jealous that he didn't call me darkly handsome. Okay, I am jealous. He didn't call me lightly handsome or any kind of handsome. I want to be handsome too, like Rahm. And Mick's really jealous too.
Yeah, that's what I said. I go, you guys were just jealous.
Well, he is kind of handsome, Rahm. You got to give him that. He's a good-looking guy. I probably won't be reading the book. I'm really struggling, Rummana, if I could use you as my confessor. I'm really struggling with Obama's legacy. Every time Obama, I've had an opportunity to vote for Barack Obama. I've voted for him, so I've been very supportive of him. I was moved to tears the night he won for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Oh, of course.
And then he named Rahm as his chief of staff. It's kind of been all downhill since then.
Go ahead. I'm just saying that I've been critical of Obama too. I mean, I'll admit on air that I like Obama better than Trump. I can say that, but I think he's one of those people where it was historical. I mean, when he got elected, his middle name is Hussain. My last name is Hussain. But, my dad, that was his middle name, too. My dad didn't have a last name. I always joked that he was so poor that my dad didn't have a last name. So that was his middle name, and he made it his last name when he came to the United States. And my dad had passed away for 2 years when Obama was named president. And in Grant Park, when they said, when he took the oath and he said, Barack Hussein Obama, I'm like, God, my dad would never believe this would happen. But, it was emotional in that way. And I understood like the African-American, just the emotions. I mean, I can't imagine what it felt like to be a Black person, but I understood it. So, but I've been critical of him too. And I know you were just talking a little bit too.
Well, I just, I'm really struggling with this one, and I'm going to have to probably address it sooner or later, but there's a reason. And I don't think it could all be blamed on Barack Obama, but there's a reason we ended up with Trump. And I think that part of it has to do with the failures of Barack Obama and the Democratic Party under him. He was the leader of the Democratic Party to build a lasting coalition. And I think Obama was a cult, like the cult of Barack Obama, the brand Barack Obama that he's perpetuated ever since. And this book, this 700-page tome is more of the brand of Barack Obama and less about building something that outlasts Barack Obama. Am I being unfair to him, Rummana, or do you sense where I'm coming from?
No, I know where you're coming from. I mean, I've criticized things that, and I was just talking about those with my husband. I mean, there's policies that he had. A lot of people, they'd call him deporter in chief, and I'm like, he did have some immigration. He did deport a lot of people, and we do have to look at that. We can't pretend that didn't happen. And, I know there's a lot of droning that, his administration did as well, which I don't necessarily agree with. But, overall, I think he was a more effective president than Trump. But no, I think it's good to criticize him. I know some of the things I was discussing this early in the week at dinner about how I felt like I didn't like the fact that he had distanced himself from, his pastor. I was telling my husband, I understood why he did it, but I go, as a person of color, I felt like he had to reject a lot of things that he had, as a black man, that other white, politicians don't have to do. And he had to reject part of himself. And then, he had to kept, talking about, his white mother, which I'm not, she's the one who raised him. She's the one who took care of him. But just to make white people comfortable, it just made me mad that he had to do that. And I blamed him a little, which probably is not fair because this is the only way he was going to get elected. But I felt like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to play that game? But I guess you have to play that game when you're a politician.
Yeah, that's also reality. I mean, his mother did raise him, and she was white.
She did raise him, but I just felt like he was always told to make white people more comfortable. Like,
yeah,
I did a column once where there was two young women in hijab who came to one of his events, and they were in the front, and they were asked by by Obama's handlers. They took them and they put them in the back. So, that's kind of disappointing to me as someone who's Muslim, but I'm just saying that, he had to play that game. And I definitely know why he had to play that game, but I just wish he came out a little stronger on some of that stuff.
Yeah. I was always a fan of Reverend Wright, but we'll put that aside. My Reverend Wright years. All right, let's move on to Rummana's recommendation. I have a little bit of a difference between Rummana and me on this this movie. I gave her a homework assignment and she dutifully followed it. I appreciate that. I absolutely, positively loved the Sophia Loren movie that's on Netflix.
Is it called The Life Ahead?
The Life Ahead.
The Life Ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and weeping buckets of tears. Of course, I'm older than Rummana, so I remember Sophia Loren movies from back in the day in the 60s. I was a huge fan of hers. So just watching the great one out there, it's like watching Paul Newman at the end of his career, and he's still doing movies. I love Paul Newman. But so I urge everybody to watch it. Rummana, you were a little more critical of the movie.
Yeah, trust me, I thought it was a great movie. The movie, The Life Ahead, is about, Sophia Loren's son made this film, and it's based in Italy. I think it's based in Rome, from what I could tell. And it centers on Sophia Loren, who is this former prostitute and Holocaust survivor, and this young boy. He's from an African country, and his, he doesn't have any parents or no caretakers, and she kind of takes him under her wing, and it just shows a relationship. I thought it was good, but there was something lacking about it, but I still liked it. It was very uplifting and poignant. And I just watching it, I mean, it was filmed beautifully. And I just, I've been to Italy, and then I realized how much I miss traveling, because I've been watching a lot of, internationally made, I watched Call My Agent, which you recommended, which I'm now recommending to my friends, which is based in Paris. And I'm watching this other Italian series called 000. So that's also an Italian series. So I'm just realizing how much I miss it. So I thought it was okay. If I'm on a good day, I would call it a 3-star movie. But if I'm grumpy and like really critical, I'd call it a 2.5 star. But I do recommend it. And I have to tell people, like, that was my first Sophia Loren movie. But I knew who she was. I don't know if I've ever seen her in an Italian movie, and I love foreign films. I just haven't seen her in any movies, but I definitely know who she is. I mean, even my mom, my mom was raised in India. She knew who she was, and my mom was looking at pictures, and she goes, "What happened to her?" And I'm like, I go to my mom, I go, "She's 80-something years old. She's not going to look like she did when she was 20-something." But I thought she did a good job, and I thought the young boy and all the children in the movie were so cute, and they really had a good performance. And they humanized people from different countries. Like, it was definitely a commentary on immigration and immigrants and refugees. So I did like the overall message of the film. So yeah, Ben, I'm not mad at you for recommending it to me. and Mick watched it with me too. So I'm just letting you know.
That's amazing that he sat through that. I can't believe it.
But my recommendation, this is Small Axe or Small Axes. I'm not sure what it is, but it's Steve McQueen has a new anthology series. If everybody knows who Steve McQueen is, he's the guy who did 12 Years a Slave. I think he did Widows too, which
Yes, he did.
I was a little critical of that, but I do like him in general. And this is basically, I think, a 5-part anthology series, and they're separate films based on the West Indies community in England. And I heard the first one is like excellent. It hits Amazon Prime today. And then I'm also awaiting Call My Agent season 4. I did like it. I have to say I did like it.
I can't say enough about Call My Agent, and I'm glad you got a chance to watch it. And I too am waiting for season 4. And I just always caution people, it's French language with subtitles, and the people talk really fast. So you have to really pay close attention because those subtitles are flying.
Yeah.
But I would never want to hear the dubbed in because the voices, their voices are so important. Obviously, when you have the dubbed in, it's ridiculous after a while.
The dubs are so bad. I never watch foreign films with dubs because they're usually like people who can't really speak the language that well, and you just start laughing at it. So it's not. It just totally takes away from the movie. You got to watch movie. I don't mind movie with subtitles. And it's funny that you're saying that they talk fast. I talk fast, like when I speak English. When I talk with my mom and I speak to her in Urdu, I speak a lot faster and a lot louder. My husband says that I get more animated. So I understand a different language. And I just thought it was, I did recognize some of the actors that were in some of the latter series, Juliette Binoche and Isabelle Adjani. I just realized how, I always thought, I was like looking at, some of the characters are definitely Middle Eastern, and you realize like Paris is also very, has different people from so many different countries too. And Isabelle Adjani, growing up, I never thought about it, but when I was watching it this time, I was like, God, I bet one of her parents is Middle Eastern or Muslim.
Absolutely.
And it turns out her dad was Muslim. So, he was from, I think, Algeria or Morocco. So
just the premise of the show is it's a fictitious agency in Paris that represents movie stars, actors, etc. And in every episode, a real live French movie star plays him or herself as one of their as a client of the agency, and so they have fun with playing themselves as egotists, or with huge egos that are easily wounded, and it's just delightful.
And I bet people in France, like, they get all the inside jokes. Like, I was like, after, like, Ben was probably doing the same thing. Some of the actors I didn't recognize, I'd Google them afterwards, and a lot of the characters they're playing, they're kind of making fun of themselves and things that they're known for. That one woman that was in the morgue, and they wanted her. There was this one actress comes in, and they wanted her in a scene in a morgue, and the director wanted her to be like completely naked and open the body bag. And she's like, why do you have to open the complete body bag? And, there was kind of this back and forth. And then I was just looking up the actors. I don't know why I looked that one up, but it turns out, and then, there was like some commentary on somebody biting off her ear, but she bit off someone's ear in real life. And she did work in a morgue and would steal things and sell it. So, there's all these things that, like, I'm sure if you followed celebrity culture in Paris, you would get some of the jokes. Like, some of us, it probably went over our heads, except for the people that we recognized. So
this is Rummana Hussain, Ben Joravsky are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
When you're a journalist, you're always a journalist. I mean, yes, I did the same exact thing. As soon as each show is over, I go back and look at Wikipedia, and I click on and I read about the celebrity, what he or she did in France, and they were hugely successful.
Oh,
and it's
of
like
course.
the world I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they're widely known. It'd be like, again, I said this in there. It'd be like not knowing who Brad Pitt is.
Of course, of course.
And so absolutely delightful. I'll leave you with one last recommendation. I don't know if I did this with you. Dave Chappelle, I saw it twice. The special on Netflix where he gets his award, the Mark Twain Award from the Kennedy Center. I urge everybody to watch that. If you're into Chappelle, and if you're not into Chappelle, don't bother. But he's hilarious. His friends are. Jon Stewart is in it. Sarah Silverman comes on. I mean, it just. Eddie Murphy, they make appearances on his behalf. That's very funny. I urge you to watch. It's your next homework assignment, Rummana.
I know. You gave it to me earlier this week, but I didn't have time. But I will check it out.
All right. So what? We'll leave you with this. What are you going to be doing for Thanksgiving?
So Thanksgiving, unfortunately, I guess it's good. I'm following guidelines. We're not going to get together with my family because with all my siblings and the kids, it turns out to be 14 people. And my mom's like, it's better to be safe. So me and my brother said that his kids wanted to cook. So what me and my sisters are going to do, and Mick is going to help with, is we're all going to cook like a couple of dishes. My older sister said that her kids still wanted turkey. We're still going to have Thanksgiving hopefully when the numbers go down and we can have some social distant party. But for now, we're going to still have turkey, and my older sister going to make turkey and other things. And me and my other sister are going to make sides, and we're all going to trade and eat at home.
Yeah.
Pass it out. How about you?
Be very quiet Thanksgiving. Usually I'd be with my kids, but what are you going to do? It's a pandemic. Unlike Rudy Giuliani, I take it seriously.
Yeah.
So be quiet Thanksgiving. I'll probably be watching a lot of shows on TV.
Yeah. Is one of your daughters going to be able to come home?
Yes.
Okay, good. At least you have
one daughter. Yeah.
At least you have one daughter. It is sad, but maybe it's better that we be safe and sorry, and then we can have a nice Thanksgiving next year.
That is a great sentiment. I appreciate it. One thing I'm really thankful for is that for this whole show, every Friday, Rummana Hussain has been my guest. I'm very thankful for that. Rummana, I want you to stay as safe and sound as you possibly can. Give all my love to your family, including your dear husband, who is a great sport. Every Friday, we throw him under the bus and then drive over it. He's a great sport, the great McNumpke. So you have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you. No, we won't see you next week. We're not going to be doing 2 weeks. All right.
Well, I hope you and Dennis have a good Thanksgiving too.
All right. Thank you very much. That's a great Rummana Hussain. Speaking of Dennis, do you got any updates for me?
Wait, Rummana. I miss her every week. I had a recommendation for her. I was going to recommend she watch Alf.
Alf. Okay.
Yeah, the furry little alien guy, lives in the garage.
Well, we'll have to give her that recommendation the next time she comes on the show.
2 weeks. I got to remember that. All right. Let's do the back half here. 2 stories we need to talk about. First up, Democratic leaders in Illinois are a bit at odds at the moment when it comes to their House Speaker, Michael Joseph Madigan. By the way, no new names to report at the moment, and no one waiting outside to jump on that bus waiting to roll over our House Speaker. I'm sure we'll have a few more come Tuesday. But, Ben, we do have breaking news. Right now, in my face, a story about Democratic unity in Illinois. We need a little unity, a good unity story. The following comes from the meanest Illinois political bulldog in the yard. Yes, Rich Miller of Capital Facts. Go check out Capital Facts. Fantastic source for Illinois news. FAX, like a fax machine. All right, after the recent threats towards Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's daughter this week, damn near every Illinois Democratic House member put out a joint press release. The press release reads, as elected officials, our job is to be accessible to our constituents, even when they vehemently disagree with us and criticize our actions. This criticism must not be allowed to fester into threats against our family. In this unprecedented time of a pandemic and economic crisis, there are many in our communities that want us to take sweeping actions to prevent the spread of COVID-19, yet others want us to scale back the mitigations even at the risk of their health and the health of others. They went on to mention, that situation with the governor and kind of went on to defend the governor.
Just so I understand, I just make sure I didn't quite hear the start of that. Did you say every Democratic state representative in the House? Did you say that?
Yeah, I got a list here. It
Democratic.
Says, yes.
Not Republican.
Nope.
Let's just pause to think about that. No Republicans on that list.
Nope.
Wow. I don't know what you were going to say after that, so I kind of cut you off there. Do you have something else you want to say before I do my riff?
It's all you, buddy.
I mean, this just underscores the point I've been making all along. There's no Republicans on that list. And what, you don't care about J.B. Pritzker's family? You don't care if there's like potential threats against somebody because he's a Democrat? Doesn't matter to you? You know? You're awfully silent about every outrage in this age of Trump with MAGA. I mean, getting the Chicago Tribune editorial board to even write about Trump is twisting arms. The man has completely violated every norm that Republicans supposedly believe in when it comes to good government. Not a word. Trying to steal election. Not a word. Making phone calls to the certifiers in Wayne County. Not a word. Calling in representatives and state senators from Michigan to come to the White House to talk them into substituting pro-Trump electors for the ones elected by the people. Not a word. Now we're here in Illinois. We have MAGA in Illinois. Don't pretend we don't. Guys live in Chicago, live in that little blue bubble of yours. You don't know that the rest of the state does not view Trump the way you do. They don't hold him with contempt. They support him. They don't view Pritzker the way you do. They have contempt for him. They consider it tyranny when J.B. Pritzker tries to implement social distancing rules, when he tries to implement wear a mask rules. They consider that an egregious abuse of power. They've gone to court to overturn it. They use heated rhetoric about it. And then this notion, I think it was the bounty. I think somebody wanted a bounty on where Pritzker's kids would be or where Pritzker's family would be at Thanksgiving. And meanwhile, we got Republicans or MAGA hat wearers up in Michigan arrested for plotting to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic governor. Where's the outrage from the Republican Party about that? Oh, a lot of outrage about Michael Joseph Madigan. Michael Joseph Madigan. Let's just break this down one more time. Allegedly, I don't even think was bribed by Commonwealth Edison to get legislation passed. Legislation that was supported by Republicans. This is the part of the story that always gets lost. I will pound this drum over and over again because that legislation would have passed, did pass. Commonwealth Edison didn't have to put anyone in the payroll. It would have passed. I don't think they could ever win that in court to prove that needed to put Michael Madigan cronies on the payroll to get that legislation passed. It passed with the Republican support. I can't remember, I said this already, the last time Commonwealth Edison rate hike lost because Republicans voted it down. So the notion that somehow or other the Commonwealth Edison needed to, quote unquote, bribe Michael Madigan to get their legislation passed is a joke. Really, we're talking about a deeper corruption in the state of Illinois, one that's embedded in the minds of operators, Republican and Democrat alike, who think they're somehow on the in if they hire Michael Madigan as their property tax lawyer, if they hire Ed Burke as their property tax lawyer. They're not fighting the machine at that moment. They're complicit with the machine. And then they turn right around, now that's their benefit, and they use Michael Madigan as a piñata, pound him to destroy all the values, the efforts to implement those values through law that Democrats stand for. So they're phonies and hypocrites. Here we have a case where Pritzker, violent language, essentially, used against Pritzker. Very similar to what's going on in Michigan. And where are the Republicans? See, when you first said that, I thought, did he say Democrat state reps or did he say all the state reps? You know, did DB, Darren Bailey, who's now a state senator, did he sign that? Jimmy Durkin, the head of the Republicans in the state house, did he sign that? No, Democrats. All the Republicans united against Mad Dog. They all want Madigan out. But none of them there to just on like a human level, to stand up for J.B. Pritzker's safety. Yeah, the Republican Party has really sunk low. And guys, I'm not going to be one of those good government reporters in the city of Chicago who closes my eyes to what the Republicans are doing. Outraged by Michael Madigan. I'm still not even sure, Dennis, that Michael Madigan did anything wrong in this. I'll say it again. I'm not certain that Commonwealth Edison had to put anybody in the payroll to get that legislation passed. It's just this culture of how you do business in the city of Chicago. And I urge everybody, I say it again, City So Real, that scene in that penthouse where all these well-to-do, successful people from Chicago are sitting around discussing what's going on in our city and extolling the virtues of Rahm and Ed Burke and how afraid they are of Harold Washington. You know, like another Harold Washington type politician. It's chaotic. It's disorderly. These are the people who will hire Madigan to be a property tax lawyer or hire Ed Burke to be their property tax lawyer. What phonies. We're supposed to be outraged by Michael Madigan. Now we're supposed to be outraged after you hired him as your lawyer? By the way, where are the Republicans who hired Michael Madigan as their property tax lawyer, who were only too happy to accept a break in their property taxes so they get to keep more money for themselves? Where are they now coming to his defense? Bunch of phonies and frauds. When you said that, I thought, I'm like, wait, did he say Democratic or all state reps? But I'm glad we got that clarification.
Now, I believe there were some Republicans who did, kind of mention that we don't go for the family. I'm trying to look it up online. Can't find the names, but I remember reading that. So it wasn't a lump sum like, the Democrats.
Thank you, Republic. That's so nice of you. That really is nice of you. You know, I know there's a handful of Republicans too, D, that have denounced what Donald Trump is trying to do. So there are Mitt Romney, I'm going to give Mitt Romney a shout out. Oh, my lefty. No, Ben, don't. No. Mitt Romney a shout out. He's denounced what Trump's doing. The little Giuliani hair dye dripping. It's not even dye. Hairspray dripping coup. So I'm thankful for them. I'm just saying, as a party, they haven't spoken out about Trump or apparently J.B. Pritzker.
All right, we got one more story here. Ben, I actually sent you an email. I need you to pull out that newfangled phone you got there. Check it for me. Click on the link, and you can read along with us. Guys, and finally, just like our 44th president, Barack Obama, and his long-ass memoir, someone else had the writing bug recently. Shout out to Politico for this rich content. Former Chicago mayor and, yes, avid bike rider.
I just biked around Lake Michigan, nearly 1,000 miles.
Rahm Emanuel.
Oh, no.
Wrote a Politico op-ed. Yes, he did. Ben, do you have it pulled up?
Looking. I'm looking at it right now. Yes.
All right.
It's the first time I've seen this. Seen this.
Let's take a look at this here now, because remember, Ben, Rahm Emanuel, he's a writer. Isn't that right, Ben?
He's a writer or a writer? He's a bike rider.
Both. He's
I'm not
both.
sure he ever wrote anything.
He's a writer and a writer.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, D. This is one of my favorite topics of discussion. Has Rahm Emanuel ever written any of the things that he has a byline on? I say the real question is, has he ever read any of the things that he has a byline on? So I do not know if he wrote this one. You know, he's not mayor of Chicago, so he has presumably more time to sit there and write. Okay, but I don't believe he ever wrote anything that had his byline when he was mayor of Chicago. So did he write this one? Well, let me read the first sentence and let you know if it has the brilliance of Rahm Emanuel. Okay,
read it out loud here. Here we go.
When President Barack Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law in 2010, much to the media, I'm sorry.
What?
Here we go. He's framed. This is classic Rom. Yeah, set up a straw man that he can knock down. Here we go. I even read this thing and I'm laughing. All right, serious, Ben. Here we go. When President Barack Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law in 2010, much of the media framed the bill as a vast expansion of the existing social safety net. Because a Medicaid expansion was one of the law's cornerstones, it appeared largely as a benefit for the working poor, which narrowcast its public support of. Since then, however, the nation's reliance on Obamacare's more universal projections, most notably for those with pre-existing conditions, has changed public perception. The ACA has joined Social Security and Medicare in the pantheon of American entitlements. It's popular, and Americans from all walks of life have come to rely on it. Oh my God, I can't read anymore. Sorry, T. I cannot read anymore. It's so poorly written. He may have written it, D. So there you go.
Now, what's it like, when Rom's writing one of these articles? I remember there's a process,
we haven't done
right?
this bit in a while. This is from the old days.
Yeah.
Probably why I got fired from that radio station. Rom sitting in his basement in his jockey shorts, writing before he went to work. And he's trying to think of the word. He yells up the stairs to his wife, "Honey, what's another word for like smart?" "Honey," yelling to his wife as he sits there composing these great ideas. "I'm Rahm Emanuel. I'm the mayor of the city of Chicago. I drive the Brown Line. I'm the one who single-handedly saved the schools, and now I'm taking time from my busy schedule to write an essay. Honey!"
Well, Ben,
what's another word for elephant?
He's a writer, guys. He's really good. And that's sarcasm. But, Ben, you are a column writer as well. Tell everybody what you plan on writing for your Chicago Reader column coming up, or maybe a Reader column that just came out.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to be writing coming up. But I do know, I urge everybody to read it. I just wrote a column about City So Real. I just went on a City So Real riff. I'm pretty much obsessed with this movie, D. We had Steve James on this week, the maker of the movie. We're going to have Neil Salas Griffin on, who's in the movie. Ricky Hendon will be joining us. Timmy Tutton and Katie Tutton from The Hideout. So we're reaching out to a lot of people who are in the movie. And I talk about, in my column, two of the scenes from the movie that just burn in my head. One is the salon scene that I just alluded to, just sort of the complacency and the arrogance and the smugness of the ruling class of Chicago. And how they just kind of like this contemptuous attitude toward the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? And they just love powerful mayors that they can call on the phone and get them to do whatever they want, even if it just like screws the rest of us. And then the amazing scene in that movie with Ricky Hendon and Jamal Green battling over whether Jamal's petitions, signatures are valid, just shows the twisted, bizarre nature of Chicago politics and the electoral system, and just the contradiction there. The way, the nitty gritty, dirty way that democracy is operating in the city, sort of like discourage people from running. And then just the attitude of the leaders of Chicago, also kind of discouraging people from running because they just want to just discourage anybody from challenging just the prevailing mainstream wisdom of having a powerful mayor who controls contracts, and having powerful finance chair of the city council, who is also a property tax lawyer that they can turn to get property tax breaks. So on one hand, they criticize the machine, and the other hand, they take advantage of it. So that's what I wrote about, D. It's on my mind constantly. Contradictions of Chicago, the city that I decided to move to.
Then Vice President Biden called the bill a big effing deal. As president, oh, sorry, I was reading Rahm Emanuel's latest political piece. I don't know, man. It's not that bad.
I'm sure it is.
It's not that bad.
Read. Maybe I'll just go to one sentence and see how good it is. Here we go. A decade ago, many would have been hard pressed to argue that good policy was good politics in the case of Obamacare. That's brilliant. Can I just say this? That's just absolutely brilliant. Although I just want to point out, that's kind of curious that Rahm's suddenly an expert on Obamacare. Wasn't he the same Rahm Emanuel who took the bike ride throughout Wisconsin or Michigan, I guess it was, and could not find one person who wanted to talk about Medicare for all? Remember that, D? Remember that?
I just
couldn't find
biked
one
around
person.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah, okay. Did you find anybody to talk about Medicare for all?
Nearly 1,000 miles.
Okay. Well, the part of the we don't have is where he goes, I couldn't find one person to talk. But now Rahm wants to talk about it. I think this is part D. Without, my guess is the Rahm, now this is like Rahm trying to look all scholarly and like, and hope that he'll get picked to be the transportation, secretary. Like he's really into policy. A policymaker. I'm a really deep thinker, not just a bike rider. Although I am a bike rider too. And, I do a lot of things, D.
Wait, how many miles?
Nearly 1,000 miles.
Holy crap, that's a lot of miles.
Yeah, a lot of miles. And not one person wanted to talk about Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Not one, D.
Yeah, not one person wanted to talk to a big sweaty guy with bicycle shorts on yelling at him. Not one person wanted to, all right. And by the way, check out the latest column from Ben Joravsky, the one he was talking about, and future Ben Joravsky columns at the chicagoreader.com. Or you can subscribe to the Chicago Reader and get it sent to you as well. chicagoreader.com. Fantastic publication. And also be sure to check out this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning. We got Scott Duff, the Wild Man, coming on Sunday. Oh, and also we want to mention that City So Real special that we did with Steve James is fantastic. Once you plow through those Benny J bonus interviews, give Steve James a listen. An incredible interview with Steve James. Ben talked one-on-one with him. It was very good. And that's about it. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right, I want to thank Rummana Hussain. Great job as she does always. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom the joy is possible, as Rahm Emanuel and Rummana Hussain will tell you. Back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. Have a great weekend, everybody.
I want an answer. I want an answer. I want an answer. I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit is what I think. If you think we
No offense, fuck you then. Who are you gonna tell me I'm full of shit? I want an answer. I want an answer. I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
Nearly 1,000 miles.